called this video as Intermittent Fasting Holy Grail. After all, there's a lot of stuff on web dealing with the same subjects. But before I answer this question, if you allow me, let me talk a little about myself. I always went a fat as child who tried practically all the traditional diets. Do I got results with that? Of course I did, but never got close to my goal. I always dreamed to achieve a 7-8% body fat, and it was only in the mid-2010 when I discovered and put in practice intermittent fasting for the first time. I needed to say goodbye to 4 big things in my life. 1. Goodbye to Tupperwares. Eating twice or thrice a day has never been so easy. 2. Goodbye hunger. I wouldn't imagine that intermittent fasting could be so powerful inhibiting the cravings. 3. Goodbye fat rebounds. The diet so flexible that I could maintain the results with no headache. And 4. Goodbye stubborn fats. For the first time in my life, I could drop below 7-8% body fat. In other words, exceeded expectations. As you can see, I follow IF as long as 5 years and helped to popularize the method here in Brazil. Thereby, I believe I have some authority to pass on some knowledge. But now answering the first question on this video, why I call it IF Holy Grail? That's because I created a truly IF guide compacting all the relevant info on the web. I also want to thank Martin Berkan and Dr. Bojan Kostevski for providing the most complete of scientific data out there. In this video, you're gonna see the features and curiosities about IF, as well the benefits, either for aesthetics or health, and finally debunk all the myths around the world of nutrition. Are you ready to see where eyes cannot reach? Take a seat and let the revolution begin. Saying that intermittent fasting do not work for those who want to get really big, professional bodybuilders, it's such a lie. I have absolutely sure that 99.99% of you that are seeing this video don't have the density, quality and shape volume of these athletes. Like the deceased bodybuilder Serge Nubre, famous in the mid-70s by eating 1 big meal a day, like Michael Lockett, Fred Sanya, the famous boxer Herschel Walker, or the MMA fighter Ronda Rousey, now shooting moves in Hollywood. The actor Hugh Jackman followed the IF protocol to achieve an extremely ripped body. Very interesting to say that the 4 times Mr. Olympia champion Jay Cutler praised the IF, writing a note in your Facebook. What else personalities have in common? Each one of them have an extremely busy life and needed to find something that make diet easier, founding an easier way through IF protocol. IF has been popularized around the world by 4 big strands. Maybe the most popular of them was Martin Berkan, who created the Lean Gains protocol, where you undereat for 16 hours and overeat in an 8-hour window. Ori Hofmeckler created the Warrior Diet protocol, where you undereat for 20 hours and overeat in a 4-hour window. Brad Pillen created the Hit Stop Eat methods, where you do fast 24 hours a day, once or twice a week. That's maybe a more flexible way to follow intermittent fasting. And the most used in scientific studies, the alternate day fasting, where you do fast for 24 hours every other day, proves to the world that IF is salutogenic. That means that even without calorie restriction or in a junk food eating style, there were great health improvements. IF is divided in 2 big phases. The undereating phase, where you do need to fast 16 up to 20 hours a day, and the overeating phase, where you do need to eat in a 4 up to 8 hour window. That means, if your last meal in the previous night was at midnight, your first meal next day should be at 4 p.m. or in the limit of 8 p.m. But if you're following the method for the first time, you should try an adaptation phase, starting with a smaller fasting hours and, bit by bit, increasing it to traditional methods. In the fasting state, you can use coffee, water and tea abundantly, of course without sugar. You can use sweeteners, rather stevia, which is one of the few, if not the only, that do not measure metabolism. Soda and guns are allowed sparingly, cause the chemicals found in them is just too much. They are endocrine disruptors. Little snacks throughout the day are allowed, but certainly it will not be needed, due to the great hunger inhibition that fasting offers you. Now, I'm finally going to introduce you the Lean Gains protocol, which will allow you a body recomposition. That means burn fat and gain muscle simultaneously. It's an extremely easy and flexible protocol that fits wherever your workout hour. First, you need to work out 3 times a week, each other day, choosing by preference, if it will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, always interleaving with the rest days. If you work out first thing in the morning, go on empty stomach, just with 15 grams of BCAA, 15 minutes prior to training. When workout is over, go home and eat your first meal. If still not the time to break the fast, take again 15 grams of BCAA right after training, repeating the dosage every 3 hours until the breaking time. Your first meal should be the most caloric of the day, prioritizing carbs and limiting fats. The other meals should be light in calories, prioritizing fats and limiting carbs. If you work out in the afternoon or night, the protocol should remain the same. Your bigger and high carb low fat meal should be always right after your workout. BCAA should only be used if it was passed over 2 hours between pre-workout meal and training, in order to cause an hyperaminoacidemia state. Don't befool yourself. Eating a high caloric and high carb meal prior to sleep will not make you a fat ass. In the Debunking the Myths section, you see a lot of scientific data proving the benefits of this eating style, either for aesthetics or health. Do you imagine why you do need to eat your bigger meal right after training? Well, that's a technique created by the physician John Kiefer that consists in the nutrient partitioning. Wherever you eat will be used more readily for their actual functions, avoiding or inhibiting completely the fat gain. In the near future, all the drugs and supplements will be focused in this actual mechanism, either for aesthetics or health. Intermittent fasting provides you a fertile ground for fat incineration, drop your insulin, increase your glucagon and catecholamines, which will activate your hormone-sensitive lipase, mobilizing your stored fats, leading them to the mitochondria, where it will be burned off. There is also a blood flow increase in the abdominal areas, make it easier to the catecholamines to get in the stubborn place. You may say, low carb diet also burns fat, thereby I do not need to follow IF. Well, don't forget that the present triglycerides in low carb diets inhibits hormone sensitive lipase, similarly to insulin on high carb diets. After 16 hours of fasting, we are burning almost exclusively fat. This can be proved in measuring the respiratory quotient. There is also a 5-fold increase in the uncoupling protein 3 expression that controls the hydrogen ions in your mitochondrial crest, improving energy utilization and inhibiting the lactic acid and cramps. You can treat leptin as a metabolic thermostat. When you go on a diet, your body doesn't know if you want to look good to the summer or if you're entering a period of food shortage. Leptin just signals to lower your hormone that controls your metabolism. Sexual and anabolic hormones also decrease. That explains why it's so hard to get ripped in a diet, or why you got a libido loss. In these situations, it's much more important to get alive instead procreate. In an incredible way, leptin don't fall in men's fall on IF. In women, there is also a 40% increase. That's a unique fact that only IF can offer you. Another amazing thing is that IF can block the alpha-2 adrenergic receptors. That, if you don't know, is one of the major contributors for stubborn fat storage. IF is amazing for muscle gain, even on a cutting diet. Increases your adiponectin, which will increase your insulin sensitivity, and the glucose transporter GLUT4. That means that the carbohydrates you ate will stock as glycogen on your muscle and liver in a much easier way, leading to a great muscular volume and vasodilatation. There is a 6-time increase in your growth hormone secretion. Yes, the same hormone that athletes and personalities are paying real fortunes to obtain. Now you can get it for free, an excellent sparing muscle and fatty burning tool. Some say that IGF-1, which is nothing more than growth hormone metabolized in the liver, falls. Well, not all scientific evidence point to that. There are studies made in humans, Ramadan fasting, proving there is no decrease in IGF-1 levels after 16 hours of fasting. Another animal studies also shows an increase. IF improves the correlation between testosterone and estradiol hormone, setting right this hormonal imbalance, which is seen in a lot of average Joes. Yes, today men are get feminized. IF causes 60% greater muscle retention relative to an ordinary diet. Even though the method used in this study cannot be 100% accurate, it's a great news anyways. People who follow IF can confirm in practice. That's a really great muscle sparing effect. In the post-workout meal period, IF showed an amazing increase in the enzyme which denotes protein synthesis relative to a traditional diet. The glucose transporter, also fatty burning enzymes, were again much higher in the IF group. The glycogen storage after a cardiovascular session were ridiculously higher than breakfast group. Would seem a lie if it were not true. Another enzyme responsible for the energy cycle showed discrepancies between genders. While there was an advantage in men in the IF group, this advantage was in the female breakfast group. Despite this study showed that women do better eating breakfast previously a cardio session, I would say we cannot take this as absolutely true. There's a lot of examples of women around the world doing just great with IF. And what about the cardiopulmonary capacity? Well, it depends on the intensity of VO2 max. Above 65%, breakfast group do better. Below this value, IF goes ahead. That means if you are high-intensity athletes, you will do better with a meal prior to exercise. IF is amazing for hunger inhibition. It modulates ghrelin, which controls your appetite through your feeding patterns. That means if you eat always at 10 a.m., you will always feel hungry this time. But if you embrace an IF protocol and start to eat in the afternoon or nights, your hunger first signs will appear always in the afternoon-night period. In other words, ghrelin are now adapted to your newest feeding pattern. There will also be a big increase in the catecholamines release, strongly inhibiting your appetite, similar to drugs like sibutramine, amphetamine, etc., but in a physiologically manner, completely safe to your organism. Beside that will be the PYY neuropeptide secretion that inhibits your appetite, and the NPY neuropeptide inhibition that stimulates hunger. Average Joes do not feel fully satisfied with a regular meal size. They have a higher dopamine threshold. It means that only after a giant-sized food serving, their dopamine can release in enough quantity reaching their mesolimbic dopamine pathway system, giving the gratification and reward feelings. Thereby, IF can be a lifesaver for this kind of people. IF is awesome for cardioprotection, inhibiting atheromorous plaques in your blood vessels. Furthermore, increases angiogenesis through basic fibroblast growth factor, leading to an myocardial revascularization. Imagine being stuck in the traffic and need to find alternative roads to your destiny. That's what happens in revascularization. A collateral circulation is reached to your myocardium, allowing a constant blood flow. Besides improvement in arterial hypertension and diabetic nephropathy, IF can lower your homocysteine levels. Today, not only an important cardiovascular risk factor, but higher homocysteine levels, known as hyperhomocystinemia, can let you predisposed to several diseases. You become a true time bomb, which can explode at any time. Neuroprotection. Intermittent fasting is an excellent neuroprotector. Besides protects you from Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, senescence, and epilepsy, inactivate factors which could kill your neuron. Activate factors which protect your neuron. Your mood is substantially increased. due to the happy neurotransmitters endorphins and serotonin increase. Fasting makes you smarter, further increase your hippocampus neurons, also increase their connections through brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is highly secreted during fasting. Today is known that intelligence is not measured by neural numbers. What really matters is their connections. Besides protects your myelin sheath and spinal cord against damage, there will be a glutamate blockade in the NMDA receptor, which could cause excitotoxicity. Today, one of the major contributors for depression, anxiety, and stress. Protection to your digestive system. The gut is one of the most important human organs. After all, we are not what we eat, but what we can digest, absorb, and assimilate. The gut possesses more than 100 trillion neurons and 30 neurotransmitters. 95% of your happy neurotransmitter, serotonin, is produced in the gut. Your microbiota is responsible for more than 70% of your immune system, and with neurons cause some actions like food digestion, absorption, peristalsis, and fermentation, in addition to a metabolism of xenobiotics and bioacids. Also synthesize vitamins B and K. For every darkness there is light, for every work there is a rest, for all the yin there is a yang. Eating every 3 hours, you end up overloading your digestive system, losing a precious rest and metabolic optimization opportunity that IF can offer you, inhibiting fatigue, weight gain, immunity fall, and constipation. Anti-diabetic. I never seen in my whole life nothing better than intermittent fasting against diabetes. Besides causing amazing improvement in insulin sensitivity, through adiponectin increase, there is also cholesterol transporter HDL increase. There is a meaningful fasting glucose decrease and improvement of all related diabetes damage. Personally, I've seen the diabetes cure for those who followed IF protocol, quite the opposite to what is propagated in the mainstream media. Anti-cancer. IF has amazing anti-carcinogenic properties. Besides offering protection against epidermal lymphomas and renal cancer, and talking about kidneys, IF preserves glomerular filtration and renal plasma flow, protects you also from liver and prostatic cancer, and talking about prostates, IF causes testicular mass preservation. Moreover, what everyone should know is that even not following IF, a smaller meal frequency promotes a greater cancer protection. Everyone should follow low-carb based diets, low in the amino acid glutamine. An interesting pharmacological resource is low-dose naltrexone, but this is a topic for an upcoming video. Metabolic syndrome. IF offers you protection against all parameters relative to metabolic syndrome, especially inflammatory profile, oxidative stress, and weight gain. It's worth to say that all diseases virtually have an inflammatory profile. In women, there is a decrease in LDL transporter and triglycerides without interfering on HDL transporter. In men, there is an increase in HDL transporter, a decrease in LDL without interfering on triglycerides. Analgesia. Stop feeling unnecessary pain. IF modulates your nociceptive neuron, and together with beta endorphins release, there is some great pain inhibition. It's like having headache remedy every day for free. Anti-aging. IF slows the aging clock. In animal models, there is a 27% increase in life expectancy. As well as resveratrol, substance found in grapes, IF increased the protein expression of sirtuin-1, known in the mainstream media as the elixir of youth. And what does substance do? It causes a mitochondrial biogenesis. Do you know anyone who's always tired, feeling sleepy during the day, that let the workout for the next day? Well, I would not say that this person is lazy. I would say that this person has a mitochondrial deficiency, probably due to the bad energy use. This is called functional hypoxia. There is a theory called mitochondrial theory of aging, which relates the good energy use with the slow aging process. in addition offering you a dense protection wall against oxidative stress by increasing antioxidant enzyme expression, and beyond the inflammation inhibition, IF increased the HSP70 shock protein that preserves the protein dimensional shapes in your body, adding their metabolic functions. In the 2nd century before Christ, it was common the death by poisoning. Mithridates, the king, in order to avoid the worst, began to take low poison dosages, for somehow become immune. And that's exactly what happened. When his kingdom was invaded, no one could kill him poisoned. Perhaps from there has arisen the phrase, "What not kill me makes me stronger." In the organism, this principle is called hormesis, which causes a molecular adaptation. Every day when you do fast, you are exposed to a low physiological cortisol dose, causing the eustress. Eustress is the good guy that increases your mood, cognition, memory, and performance. Distress, in turn, is the bad guy that leaves you dumbed down, depressive, and etc. But this kind of stress just appears when you are exposed to a chronic and excessive cortisol levels, something related to emotional problems and a lot other variants. The molecular adaptation causes an antioxidant enzyme fortification, protecting against reactive oxygen species, and neurotrophic fortification, protecting against the glutamate excitotoxicity. Autophagia. Autophagia is like a basement cleanliness. Drain out all the garbage, replacing it for brand new material, is the best detox system ever. Tell me the truth. Sometime in your life you spent money with detox shakes or another products that, in 99% of cases, were false advertising. Now you have in hands, and for free, the best detox system ever created in the face of the world. Autophagia is when you do stimulate lysosomal organelles to break unwanted intracellular products like viruses and bacteria, increasing your immunity. If you get an alcohol blast today and next day do HIF, you will get rid from ethanol much more easily, as well as undigested food particles, a real cleanliness in your cytoplasm and endoplasmic reticulum. Besides the neurotoxin removal responsible for Parkinson and Alzheimer's disease, and the old mitochondrial shift for new ones improves significantly your body energetic function, autophagia also protects you from death and cellular necrosis. For you who are going bald, excellent news! It will be a nice alopecia protection. As you get older, there is a decrease in autophagia process. Fasting and use substance that also aids in the process will leverage the action. We can call this synergy. Green tea, coffee, metformin, resveratrol, and vitamin D3 aids in the process, as well lithium. But I like to highlight that lithium is just safe in the orotate form. Uncovered in Germany, it's a non-toxic form, unlike the carbonate that damage your health in a very different ways. Intermittent fasting causes catabolism. Maintaining stable glycemia is priority in our body. Liver works incessantly, releasing sugar to the blood in order to occur such maintenance. Only after a complete emptying of hepatic glycogen, your body starts to use amino acids from your muscle tissue, and in a process called de novo gluconeogenesis, turn them into sugar, bringing back the glycemic stability. Such pathway is known as catabolism, which you do loses muscle mass. The scientific papers are clear, showing that even after 16 hours of fasting, you will have 50% of hepatic glycogen and 50% of plasma amino acids contributing for glycemic maintenance. Face these amino acids as the cheap ones. They are not coming from your muscle tissue. Instead, they are coming from your still being digested food protein. After 24 hours of fasting, there is a 57% of hepatic glycogen fall. Even so, zero catabolism. Only after 40 hours of fasting should occur a completely hepatic glycogen emptying, and, in theory, the high rate of gluconeogenesis would lead us in a profound catabolic state. But Impressively, some studies show that the catabolism gene is even activated after this time. Further, the growth hormone increases secretion that inhibits catabolism. There is also a ketone body production that spares hepatic glycogen, serving as a secondary energetic substrate. Thereby, I'm proving that in a non-retarded diet, there will be no catabolism at all, even after 16 up to 24 hours of fasting. IF lowers metabolism? Of course not. The majority of studies shows a metabolic increase, 3.6 up to 10% in a 36-48 hour of fasting. Another studies show up neutral in a 7-96 hour of fasting period. Just a few shows a metabolic decrease in a 60 hours period. Frankly speaking, in a 16 up to 20 hours fasting protocol, I assure you a metabolic increase. It can be felt in those who follow IF. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. First of all, I wanted you to know that breakfast is an artificial habit created by Kellogg's industry. Yeah, that one from Tony Tiger cereals. If you type in Google "breakfast makes me hungry," you'll find more than 28,060,000 references. When you're sleeping and suddenly wake up, there's a huge bariomeostasis break, letting your cortisol and alarm levels up to 20-30 nanomoles liter, unlike the afternoon and night period, which you'll find 2 up to 5 nanomoles liter. This phenomenon is called CART, cortisol awakening response, and is responsible for an insulin potentiation. When you eat your breakfast, there will be a huge insulin spike, similarly to diabetic people, called postprandial hyperinsulinemia, and in a period of 30 minutes up to 2 hours after that meal, you will feel an extreme hypoglycemic hunger. This does not happen on IF protocol, where we do break the fast in the middle afternoon. Despite this statement cannot be generalized, it's what more founded out there. Late night carbs are fattening. There are some myths that are such absurd that it's worthless to be disputed. Imagine you're in South America and suddenly you are teleported to China. According to Greenwich Meridian, are 12 hours apart. So, if you get your carbs at 6 a.m. on South America, you will get no fat. But if you eat the same carbs at 6 p.m. on China, oh my god, now the carbs get really fattening. That makes sense to you? There is hundreds of scientific papers showing the various health and aesthetics benefits from this eating pattern. Check this video description to find nice 7 ones. Intermittent fasting causes hypoglycemia? If we want to know if a fact is true or lie, we must look by its evolutionary side. Do you ever imagine a Homo sapiens needing to carry Tupperwares for an every 3 hours eating to avoid a hypoglycemic state? It just doesn't make sense. Only after 72 hours of fasting would occur a glycemic drop, causing a cognitive deficit. However, this would be temporary, until body can adapt to ketone bodies. Study shows that even after 22 full days of fasting, cognition is even affected. Moreover, the world is upside down. A lower meal frequency showed a better glycemic control relative to a higher frequency pattern. Completely the opposite from what is shown by mainstream media. The body can only absorb 20-40 grams of protein at a time. By the way, do you know where comes from the myth that we should eat every 3 hours? It was in a study made with whey protein, in which have an amino acid absorption rate of 10 grams per hour. In this study, we are given 30 grams of whey for each participant, and after 3 hours, no amino acids were found in the subject. Eureka! We should eat every 3 hours to maintain a constantly amino acid flow in the plasma. What happens is that these scientists forgot to say that every food has a different amino acid absorption rate. An usual pizza slice can provide you amino acid flow in up to 5 hours. If the same study were done with whole eggs, the results would be 7 times longer. The majority of animal protein digests in a 3 up to 6 grams per hour rate, exceptionally sirloin steak, which digests in a 10 grams per hour rate. When you eat a mixed meal, there is a macronutrient interactions, carbs, proteins, dietary fats, and fibers. slowing the nutrients digestion rates. If you eat a meal posteriorly another, there will be an even longer delay. And what about body protein utilization? It will depend wholly and directly from your lean body mass. The larger you are, gets harder to grow, and the protein needs will be reduced. It will be nonsensical, need more protein to grow less. And relative to protein synthesis and muscular anabolism, would be a difference between eating a high or low frequency pattern? Well, in elderly individuals, the lower the frequency, the higher the protein synthesis, and showing no difference in young individuals. In other words, put it clear in your minds, a bigger meal just will take a longer time to be digested and absorbed, not change your final results at all. Eating every 3 hours to stoke the metabolic fire? Every time you do eat a food, your body spends energy and produces thermogenesis in order to digest and absorb the nutrients. This phenomenon is called TEF, thermogen effect of foods. A larger meal TEF, it will be identical to a 6 smaller meals, if both are the same in terms of calories and macro composition. That means no, eating every 3 hours do not stoke your metabolic fire. Intermittent fasting do not work for women. This myth was spreaded through the blogger Stephanie Rupert after mistakenly analyzed some scientific papers and began to popularize the myth in her blog. This same myth was debunked by Anders Niedergaard, a PhD, that reassessing these studies proved that they were not being properly interpreted. For those who wish to follow the discussion and ideologies between them, can access their blogs and keep it up with. It's very interesting. If intermittent fasting did not work for women, how to explain Dr. Sarah Solomon results, or Ronda Rousey shape, or even my girlfriend's results Alessandra do Amaral, who follows the protocol almost 2 years. By the way, if you want to contact her for some tips, feel free to add on her Facebook page, check link below.